Hi everyone, my name is Natalie. So, as you can see, I'm in a new place, a new environment for this filming, and that is because I have moved. If you haven't, I don't know if I mentioned this on YouTube actually, but that has been going on at the end of February, beginning of March. I was moving my things, packing away all of my books, and in the beginning of this month I sort of started to settle into the new apartment, and I have set up bookshelves and I have started to unpack them. They're not completely done yet, so I have two bookshelves that I'm missing a few plugs that I need to find replacements for. So they're not completely done yet. Mostly they are up at least. But I also want to sort them, and I did film a bit of the unhauling, or not the unhauling, the unpacking of the books. And I might do another section where I actually order the books. So that is coming soon, hopefully. But I do want to finish that project before I really show that process. And the reason I'm not sitting in front of my bookshelves is because my living room is empty except for the bookshelves. So I've ordered a sofa. It hasn't arrived yet. It's going to be arriving in about a month, a little less than that hopefully. And I'm missing some furniture basically, so I can't really sit there to film. I'm still missing, what is the word? What is gardin in English? Anyways, so because of that, it's a little bit echoey, I think. So hopefully that's still fine for you. Today I wanted to do a February wrap-up, catch-up. I realize it's already quite a bit into March. That just means that you'll get two videos quickly after another. But like I did with the January wrap-up, I'm going to start talking about the books that I finished, then the books I have started in February, and then some of my watching, some of my knitting updates as well. Let's get cracking. So the first book I finished in February was Fiskaren by Segtnan. I think I mentioned that I had started reading it in January, and so I mentioned it in the previous video. It is a historical fiction novel, a Swedish new release that follows a woman who is the wife of a hunter, and they move from Stockholm to a more rural area in a small village, and it is clear from the get-go that something has happened to the wife, and that is sort of haunting them as they move to this new location, and it almost seems like they're running away from something. And you quickly realize that the thing that they were running away from has come with them to this new location. It's a gothic, haunted kind of it's kind of that mix or the barrier between women's madness and hysteria and all of that, mental illness, madness on the one hand, and then the real spiritual hauntings, the possibility of spirits lingering, and ghostly presences. So it's a very atmospheric book. I really enjoyed reading it, especially around the winter time as it's set in the winter. So I got a ARC for it and really enjoyed it. Would recommend if you read it in Swedish. The second book is also a Swedish new release, and also one I got an ARC of. It is Ymnighetshornet by Soraya Bay. Soraya Bay, I want to say. Soraya Bay. And this is a short story collection about women in patriarchal societies. So some of the stories are about beauty ideals, some of them are about aging, some of them are about class distinctions, class differences, poverty, the difficulty in finding a job, finding a place, the housing crisis. So they're all kind of talking about women from an underdog point of view. I loved this short story collection. All of the short stories were hits for me, more or less, and that is a rare thing for me, to find a short story collection where each story lingers, each story sort of catches on, and you enjoy all of them equally. I will say my favorite short story was called Clean Girl, which is about the idea of a beauty regime being very high intense, very high, very demanding, and the vibe of it is almost substance like in the body horror. Sort of the way the beauty ideals can chase you to sort of constantly live up to the expectation. I thought that was wonderful. Really great. Again, would recommend if you read in Swedish. Hopefully that gets an English translation as well. The next book I read was Milk by Alice Kinsella. This is a non-fiction book about motherhood. It's written by an Irish author, and she writes about motherhood, about breastfeeding. I thought that was really interesting, especially the Irish context for that, because apparently when she wrote the book, I think 50 or 60% of Irish women breastfeed, and she actually gave a comparison statistic from Sweden, which was like 99%, and that is what I am used to, because in Sweden you are not only expected to breastfeed, but it's definitely recommended and suggested. So there's a very strong culture regarding breastfeeding as the best thing you can do for the kid, for the baby, and so I thought that was interesting to see that difference. And she talks about why this is a thing in Ireland, that there's such a strong taboo in breastfeeding in public in Ireland, that means that they can't go anywhere. They're very restricted to their environment. The women, the new mothers are very restricted in their lifestyles because they're not able to breastfeed in public, and so it puts such a strain on their lives that they choose not to breastfeed. So I thought that was really interesting information and part of the book. She talks about motherhood and becoming a mother, the pregnancy of it, the first few months of the child's life. A lot of the book I found to be sort of topics that I've already read about, and that I maybe like some of other authors' take on more. I think this book is quite fragmentary. It's all of the various sections are very short, usually 1 to 2 pages, sometimes less, sometimes more. But the fragmentary style of it, I realize that is probably because of the way that time is cut into pieces as you become a mother, and she has obviously been writing this throughout that period of her life, but it does mean that it doesn't give as much of a deep dive on the topic. And like I said, because I have read quite a lot of books on motherhood, on parenting, on pregnancy, all of those things, and also quite in the last few years, that means that I can't help but compare it to other things that I've already read, like A Ghost in the Throat was one of the things that came up, Tove Ditlevsen, Olga Ravn, that I enjoyed more maybe than Milk. I really enjoyed reading it. I listened to the audiobook narrated by the author. I enjoyed her company. I liked the fact that it referenced Nick Cave, that I had just listened to his album, a few of his songs before coming across the reference, and then I listened to Ghosteen because of her reference. I also enjoy the fact that it mentioned Max Porter, which I had also read in January, so there were some overlaps with other things that I was consuming. But yeah, I enjoyed it, but not as much as other books on this topic. The next one I read was The Hour of the Wolf by Fatima Bhutto, and I got a e-galley of this, a NetGalley, no, not a NetGalley, an ebook arc of this from the publisher Daunt Books. This is again a new release, and this is again a memoir. The reason I was interested in reading this book was because I thought it would be a memoir about the author's relationship to her dog, Coco. It is about that, but I think it's more about her relationship with a man who is quite abusive, psychologically, about walking away from that relationship, and I guess some of the things that played into her being able to leave him. So it is looking at different aspects of her life, but one of the things that it talks about is her relationship to Coco, and the way that her relationship to her dog sometimes influenced her actions and her relationship with the man. So like I said, it's very much centrally, in my opinion, about the relationship. A very abusive man. He has been gaslighting her for years. I don't remember how long the relationship lasts, but it's he gaslights her, he undermines her, he's very controlling, he's very dismissive. Another kind of central aspect of her life and the time period that this book follows is the fact that she wants to become a mother, and he does not want kids, and he has been pretty upfront about that from the beginning, and she constantly thinks that she will be able to convince him and turn him around, and she continues to invest in this relationship despite the fact that they have different future interests and they don't match in this particular question. So the thing that really saves her in the end is partly her dog, partly her friendships, and I guess this memoir is just about that turn of her life, and I was a little bit disappointed in that, because like I said, I thought it would be about the dog, as I was sort of led to believe from the synopsis. I don't know if I just read into that because I wanted to read a book about a dog. And actually in the acknowledgements, she mentions how certain people helped her in making this book more than a relationship about a dog. And that is kind of where my disappointment comes from. I wish that would be the focus. I also think she doesn't pay enough tribute to her friend who helped her through a lot of shit. And I guess the main qualm I had was that sometimes it can veer into this idea that you can only become an adult or a full-fledged human being if you become a parent. Even though she doesn't say that this is the only way for people to live their life, she does sort of, I guess, insinuate in the way she writes about it. And I hate that. And that is kind of, I think, something that I felt about Milk as well. She says something like, as soon as she became pregnant, she became an adult. Obviously you could end up, because of new responsibilities, maturing through that. And of course it's a change in your life, but you can also be an adult without having kids, and that kind of sentiment is something that I find quite frustrating to read. So that, I think, was my main criticism of the book. Other than that, the fact that it's not as dog-centric as I wished was more to do with my preference and my interests. But I did really enjoy following along the author and I enjoyed her voice through the memoir, so I would be interested in reading her fiction, but we'll see. Especially really enjoyed listening to the audio as I did sort of parallel with the ebook. The last of the books that I finished in February was Heated Rivalry by Reid. If you somehow have missed the hype around Heated Rivalry, I watched the TV series in December as it was ongoing, as it was airing originally, and then I ordered the books. They arrived late January, I think, and by that time all of the internet around me had been obsessing over these two. So it's a hockey romance, not at all something that I would be interested in, except for the fact that it's queer. Otherwise, I would never have picked up a hockey romance. I'm 0% interested in hockey, so that would never make me interested in a book. But it's about Shane Hollander and it's raining a lot. Ilya Rozanov, and they are two star hockey players, and when they're first starting their careers they meet, and they're both sort of, there's a lot of hype around them, and so they are aware of each other, and they meet at some hockey event when they're sort of mingling and meeting, I think they're being recruited, and it's just a meet cute at that point. It's just a small moment, but then as they start their career they become rivals because they play against each other in different teams, and quite early on in their careers they start a sexual relationship. It's just sexual at the beginning, and over the course of the years and their careers it becomes something more. And Heated Rivalry is the book that introduces Ilya and Shane's storyline and follows them from their rookie years until the time that they become an actual couple. And I really enjoyed reading the book. I will say it was a lot of fun. It is very explicit, which I'm fine with in itself, but it is very centered around their sexual encounters, and I much prefer obviously the plot points of Heated Rivalry, so there's a lot of the tension focus in this book, whereas with the second book that follows these two characters is more related to their emotions, it's more related to some complications. Heated Rivalry is mostly just a romance book, and that's fine. It was fun to just read something that was just pure enjoyment. So I finished that, and that was the last of the books that I finished in February. But I did start The Long Game, which is the second book that follows Shane and Ilya, but it is the 6th book in the Game Changers series where these two characters are part of this universe. And I have since finished it, so I'll talk more about that in my March wrap up. Yeah, so I think that was all I wanted to say for the books I finished. And like I said, I started The Long Game by Reid, focusing on Ilya and Shane as they are already a couple. I also started reading Döttrar by Sara Racabarren in February. That is about it's a dual timeline, so it's a non-fiction book about the author's childhood in Iran around the Islamic Revolution, and then it also follows the demonstrations and the aftermath of Mahsa Amini's death in 2022, I think. So it's talking about the sort of the origins of the Islamic Revolution and the more contemporary timeline of what's happening in the country at the moment. Obviously it's already dated because things happen things are happening currently. So it's already changing, but it's really interesting, and I would not say I'm enjoying it, but it's interesting. So those are the books I wanted to talk about in this video. Just briefly, I wanted to mention some things I've been watching in February. So February for me was the Olympics. The Winter Olympics was a big part of my month. I watched everything in terms of figure skating. I was kind of obsessing over it. I watched almost everything for the skates, ice skating. Speed skating is one of my favorite genres of sport, and what is the short track is even more fun, I think, especially because it always ends up being very chaotic. Watched a lot of the Winter Olympics, really enjoyed that process, and as a result, I also watched the Glitter and Gold documentary on Netflix, following 3 of the figure skating pairs and sort of their preparations before the Winter Olympics. Thought that was really interesting, especially watching that before seeing who won the Winter Olympics competitions, the pair competitions this year. I've also watched the Top Model documentary reality check. That was shocking, to be honest, because of course I remember some things of America's Next Top Model being strange at the time, but I was looking back through the seasons that I remember, and I think I watched 8 years or something as it was airing. So not the first season, but the second, and then onwards, I think, until the 10th or something season. And some of the things that were happening in those seasons have somehow completely gone under my radar, as I've been, I guess, so young that I haven't thought about things critically. And yeah, it's a pretty awful background to this TV show. Some things are honestly stomach turning, like the tooth operation things, the rape on the fact that they film the rape, that they don't stop it happening even though they're watching. So there's just so many things wrong with the production of America's Next Top Model. Would recommend the documentary if you haven't seen it. I've also been watching some Swedish documentaries this month in February, and one of the best ones being Ymnighetshornet, which was about H&M and the billionaires that are behind the company, the things that they did in order to gain this hold on fast fashion. Again, really interesting. So yeah, I think those are the sort of documentary things I watched. I also watched Boyfriend Season 2, and would so strongly recommend if you want a cute, heartwarming dating show. This is fantastic. It's a Japanese queer or gay dating show that is as much about the romance as it is about friendship, and that is the reason that I really like it. I have watched His Man, which is a Korean gay dating show that I also really enjoy, but I think that is more centered around romance, whereas with The Boyfriend, to me it seems like the friendships of the group is as integral to the series as the whatever romance comes out of the show. Really enjoyed that. Okay, so that is everything. I also wanted to briefly mention my knitting. So I finished my SOS socks, the green and brown socks that I have no idea where I put them because moving, but I have also just finished, so it's actually March project at this point, but I just finished my honey cardigan, which is by Knitters and Friends. I need to block it, so it's, I don't know how much you can actually see in the camera. It's a Peer Gynt and soft silk mohair combo, so it's the cocoa nib Peer Gynt and held with the Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in chocolate. And I really wanted a cardigan because I realized I don't have a single cardigan in my wardrobe. So I still obviously have some ends to weave in, I have buttons to sew on, and I have to block it, and I need to make sure that the sleeves and the body is long enough. But I just finished the neck band yesterday, so very excited to hopefully be wearing this one soon. I have some things that I really look forward to picking up soon. I really want to do the Axis cardigan. I will leave links to the patterns that I mention here. I really want to do the Axis cardigan, but I have decided that I am not allowed to buy any yarn until I finish up some of the things in my stash, which is another thing I realized that I have a lot of it as I was preparing to move. I think the next thing I'm going to be casting on is the Fröja sweater. That is a cable sweater. I'm planning to use håndverksgarn from Hjellholts Ullspinderi that I have in cream. So I think a nice cable sweater, very oversized, will be the perfect project to be working on. I am also, where is it? Is it here? No. Yeah. I'm also working on the classic rib. You're probably not going to be able to see anything from this, but basically it's a turtleneck sweater. This is it's a Knitting for Olive pattern, and I'm currently working on the body. So it's a ribbed sweater with a turtleneck, or mock turtleneck, I guess, and I'm working it in double Sunday. Actually, I find double Sunday to be slightly too soft for my taste, but I thought it would be a nice, soft, thin turtleneck to be wearing all year round. So I'm also working on this, and I need to have something that is more mindless at all times. So that is, I guess, my current main project until I cast something new on. So yeah, I think that is what I wanted to say for this video. I hope that I'm in focus. Hope the sound quality is fine, that it's not too echoey. And hopefully by the time I film the next wrap up, I will have settled a bit more so that I can be sitting in a more proper place for filming. So yeah, I hope you're having a fantastic day. I would love to discuss, I would love to hear if you've read any of the books that I mentioned or watched any of the stuff that I've been watching. If you have thoughts, I would love to know what you read in February. Are you knitting anything or crocheting or any other crafts at the moment, or do you have plans for spring? Actually, I'm thinking of maybe doing a spring knitting plans video. I really want to incorporate knitting more, and I keep saying that, but I find it to be a bit difficult to get started. So I think having sort of a video where I just talk about some of my plans for the next season, I think that could be really nice. So maybe the spring thing could be at the end of this month. So yeah, I think that's all. So hope you're having a fantastic day. Hope you're having a fantastic month. I will talk to you soon. Bye.